with a heartache kindled into love. I took a chance when at last I went out unobserved, my house being wrapped in sleep, the hour made secure and concealed the flight to my beloved. I took a chance and left familiar treasures well behind, too far from comforting. I went out by myself, seen by no one else, a somewhat reckless journey from the start, pressing through the night without light or guide, save the fire that consumed my heart. Bless the starless night, a night by far more lovely than the dawn. Oh, happy chance to discover in this barren dark the one I knew so well. And there with my love I rested, fanned by a cooling wind, wounded by love's caresses, suspending all my senses. Bless this happy night that unites the lover and the loved. Oh, happy chance to abandon every wretched care among the lilies there. And there with my love I rested, fanned by a cooling wind, wounded by love's caresses, suspending all my senses. Bless this happy night that unites the lover and the loved. Oh, happy chance to abandon every wretched care among the lilies there.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my St. Valentine's Day concert. And we're being very particular about saying St. Valentine's Day. My wife pointed this out. She says, please make a point of that. And for good reason, that Valentine's actually officially or historically is a church feast. It's a Christian calendar feast. And falls on the day that commemorates St. Valentine's. 3rd century fellow. We'll talk about him a bit later. But just to know that he's a real living person, and he was known for his defense of covenant love. In fact, he gave his life for covenant love, which is a wonderful story, especially leading into Lent and Easter. We'll get to that. But meanwhile, that first song was Dark Night of the Soul, and that was, the text of that comes from St. John of the Cross, who was a 16th century saint, a monk. He was a reformer with Teresa of Avila, brilliant man, deep thought man. He's considered the loftiest poet of Spain. And he wrote that particular poem, and it's a beautiful love poem, but he would always use the metaphor of young love, young romantic love, as sort of a metaphor for our own desire for God and our own relationship with God. So it's always the lover and the beloved, always, right? And that particular poem speaks about a young woman who goes to great lengths to escape her house at night so she can go out and be with this forbidden love. It's a great story. He writes the 8 stanzas of this poem, and then 100 pages of really dry theology to explain the poem. I'll leave that to you. It's really well worth your read if you want to do it. But you can find that in the collected works of St. John of the Cross. It's great. It's beautiful. So for the next hour or so, I'm going to sing you a variety of songs, several from different stages of my life with my wife, Nancy. And then we'll talk a bit about St. Valentine's at the end. So this next song is, almost an instrumental. There's only one line of lyric. The story behind it is I came home. This is years ago. I used to run a painting company, a house painting company, before I got into what I'm doing now. And I came home a bit early from work one day, surprised Nancy. She was in this room. I walked in, and she spun around. I'll never forget, when she saw me, she burst into this most wondrous smile of welcome and unreserved love and hospitality. I don't know how to explain it, but I like a few times in your life, you get to feel in your bones that you're deeply loved. And I remember that was one of them, where it's just like, oh my goodness, she loves me. And I knew it, but I knew it deeper that moment. And I wrote this song, and the only line I could think of singing was, she's in love with me. And I finally realized can only be one line, because that's the only thing I wanted to say. So here it is. Okay, so this next song has more words in it. This is this is the first love song I wrote for Nancy. It was really early in our marriage, like very early, the first few months actually. I was in a band, a folk trio called Elias, Schritt, and Bell, and we were recording a record. And as these things the record came out a month after Nancy and I got married. And so I had to go on the road just shortly after we got married and to support this album, toured all the way out to Montreal and back. And about the last thing I wanted to do a month after I got married was spend 6 weeks in a van with 2 other guys. So I didn't have a very good attitude about it. And I miss Nancy so much. I just remember sort of pining the whole time. And the gigs didn't go well for us. We weren't particularly well received, so it wasn't a fun tour. And we ended up in Windsor after 6 weeks of touring, and that was going to be our last night. And then we were going to travel the next day back to Winnipeg. And I remember going into the gig on the last night and saying to the guys, "Listen, I want to get home so bad. Could we just drive through the night? Like, let's not even go back to the hotel. I'll drive all night. I need to go home." They understood. So we finished our gig at about 2 o'clock in the morning. We packed up the van and we drove under the Great Lakes back up to Winnipeg. And so this song was birthed an idea right on the border of Manitoba, getting close and just feeling like she's just so close that I couldn't wait to see her. But this was the days before cell phones. And so I had neglected to tell her we were coming home early. And suddenly it dawned on me that she wasn't expecting me for another 12 hours at least. And what if she was hanging out with friends or visiting or something? What if I wasn't going to get my moment with her? And so the song is kind of a bit of a prayer to God that there would be no visitors when I got home. You understand.
It's still a ways to Manitoba. It's been a while since I've been gone. It's been a day since we were talking on the phone. Still ahead the longest distance, just the last few miles to go. And Lord, I pray there's only one smile at the door. Will we be all alone tonight, just to be what we both know is right? Will a candle be burning? Will love have a chance to ignite? Oh, will the rest give us just one more day? Lord, I hope she has planned it that way. All I want is to know, will we be all alone tonight? And if our friends are all there with her, oh, the night will never end. And I'll just have to smile and try to act surprised. I suppose we'll laugh at all my stories, and we'll be glad I'm home again. But I'll just die each time I look into her eyes. Will we be all alone tonight, just to be what we both know is right? Will a candle be burning? Will love have a chance to ignite? Oh, will the rest give us just one more day? Lord, I hope she has planned it that way. All I want is to know, will we be all alone tonight? 'Cause oh, how I miss her. I can't wait for that moment at the door, just like I rehearsed it over and over. Oh, will the rest give us just one more day? Lord, I hope she has planned it that way. All I want is to know, will we be all alone tonight? All I want is to know, will we be all alone tonight? Tonight.
So whenever I perform that song, people, and tell that story, people always ask me, so, were you alone when you got home? And actually we were. I was sort of delighted, but it was a little weird because Nancy wasn't expecting me, like I said. And so I opened the back door, and Nancy had a kerchief around her hair, and she was mopping the kitchen floor when I walked in. And so I remember her looking at me saying, "Not now." So it wasn't quite the romantic regathering that I was kind of hoping for, but it was awesome, and a long time ago. So that's almost 40 years now. We're getting close to that. So this next song is another song. This isn't so much of a love song. It's more of just a sort of a tale a few years down the road. Most of us get involved in relationships or in businesses or projects from a romantic vision of what something's going to be like. Like, wouldn't it be great if we started a church? Wouldn't it be great if we started a business or started a family? And you just get so energized by what could be that you have no capacity to really understand what it's going to cost you. And then all of a sudden you're in, and relationships are hard, and there's struggle, and there's conflict, and everybody's traumatized because nobody expected it, no matter who gave you advice. And so this song was written, I think, from that perspective. Several years down the road after Nancy and I got married, and now we got a mortgage, and we've got a car, and we've got careers, and we've got not enough time to do everything we need to do, and we've got children, and there's not conflict, but there's rub, right? There's just all that going on all the time, and it's so much harder than I thought, and it was going to be. And one night I'm lying in bed, and I'm just sort of thinking back through all the things I'd done in my life that had started off with great promise, and then ended up being harder than I thought. And it was pretty much anything I'd ever done. And then I thought, well, would I trade any of those things? Would I go back and not do them? And I realized that everything that I loved in my life, everything that was deeply meaningful to me, was a direct result of those commitments I had made. And that to not have made them would mean that I would have never met my daughter. I would have never met my son. I wouldn't have some of the friendships that I have now and the memories. I wouldn't have grown. I wouldn't have my wife Nancy now, who is far much more now to me than a lover or a romance or now it's a companion, someone who I've shared a long life with, and it's just a very different thing. It's been well worth it for me anyways. So anyways, this next song is just kind of reflecting back on the things I just talked about.
Can I tell you the story of an average boy? A story we all know so well. It's not a tale of never-ending joy, nor trials beyond what one can tell. My childhood seemed like an eternity, each morning ruled by education bells. My youth was full of possibilities, but only few have had their fill. My love She works the other side of town. Each day she leaves for work by 9. Her smile is sweeter than an April shower. Her wrath is hotter than July. They say a couple can together be, with age a cup of love refined. Although I love my darling tenderly, this growing old may take some time. My boy is just a babe of 1 year old. My girl is but a child of 4. Both born with eyes of blue and hair of gold. Suppose maybe it will still have more. They say a father's love is suffering, and this day already I can tell. Although I love my darlings tenderly, sometimes, raising kids is Now looking back on what we've come to be, with many years to look ahead, ours has never been a winning lottery. Whoever promised that it would will cry each time a sorrow comes to mind. We'll laugh each opportunity. We'll learn to celebrate what comes to pass. You know that that's all right with me. Okay, I'm going to pull in some friends for this next song. There's Murray Pulver is going to play some electric guitar, and Gilles Fournier on the bass, and Daniel Roy on drums. This is an old song. It's one I wrote kind of around the same era as that last song. So this would be probably late 80s, I think. And this is several years into Nancy's and my marriage. We had joined a little kind of a hippy-dippy church in Winnipeg called Grain of Wheat Church Community, and which was located in Wolseley area of Winnipeg, which is a fairly famous older neighborhood. And it's a church community, a group of people that were committed to living together, not just going to church on Sundays. We all lived in the same neighborhood. We shared things like cars and laundry machines and lawnmowers, and the whole idea was that we wanted our faith to be lived out through all of our life, but we also wanted to be mutually supportive of each other so that we could live simpler, so that we could have more time or energy for things that mattered more than just maybe working in exchange for $1. And so it was an idealistic community. They're still together, wonderful people. Our best friends are from that era. But there came a time, like in any relationship, like marriage or business or anything, where there were some conflicts, there were some hurts, there were some things that went wrong, there were some betrayals, and there was pain. And there came a particular point in our relationship in that church where there came up a question: should we stay together? Did we bite off more than we can chew? And the leadership sort of asked everybody to spend a week or two in prayer and fasting. And then we're going to meet on a particular night, and everyone was going to vote yay or nay to stay together or to split. And the longer I prayed about it and thought about it, the deeper I felt the love that I had for these people that I was sharing my life with, and so desperately hoped we'd vote yes to stay together. And on that night, we got together and we're sitting in a circle, and I remember everybody had a chance to say a little something, and there was tears, and there's little reconciliations, and then came the vote, and it was yes, 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 all around the room. And everybody voted to stay together.
And that was just one of my favorite moments of my life. At the very same time, Nancy and I were going through a bit of a struggle in our own relationship as well, and we got some help. And coming out of that, we thought we needed to mark it somehow with a ceremony or a symbol. And we decided that we were going to abandon the wedding rings that we first had got each other, which were a little fancier, and we bought each other very, very plain, practical rings. And we invited some friends over, and we had a recommittal ceremony where we recommitted our life to one another. Again, deeply moving moment in my life. And so this song was written mostly out of that first experience with a little bit of that second one in there as well. It's called Let's Do It Again.
If we could roll back the time and start at the beginning again, knowing all we could find, would we walk through it over again? Maybe it's true that we were out of our minds, 'cause oh, would you, would I have come to this table if we weren't blind, only to feed on what we've left behind? Do you think we'd have the courage again, knowing what we'd have to spend? What I'm asking myself and what I'm asking my friends is, would we do it again? And by the look on your face, I know before you can speak what the answer will be, or we wouldn't be here in this place. Maybe it's true that we're still out of our minds, 'cause oh, would you or would I forfeit this love? Would we forfeit this life, only to feed on what we've left behind? Do you think we'd have the courage again, knowing what we'd have to spend? What I'm asking myself and what I'm asking my friend, would we do it again? Still out of our minds, 'cause oh, would you or would I forfeit this love? Could we forfeit this life only to feed on what we've left behind? Do you think we have the courage again, knowing what we'll have to spend? What I'm asking myself and what I'm asking my friend is, would we do it again? Would we do it again? Let's do it again.
Okay, here's another love song. But this is an older person's love song. I wrote this just a few years ago. I think this was year 30 of our marriage. Like I said earlier, we're kind of creeping up now onto year 40, not this year, but next year. But I wrote this song on Valentine's Day on the 30th anniversary of our first date. Nancy and I had our first date on a Valentine's Day. And we were married 7 months later. So from our first date to our wedding was a very short period of time. And so it was a bit of a whirlwind start, but it was great. It was great fun. But just before we got married, I was visiting my grandparents, and they lived out in Ontario. And they had been married about like close to 60 years at that point. And I spent an evening with them. I stayed overnight, and we had supper, and my grandmother made us a wonderful meal, and sat with my beloved grandparents, and they were learning all about my life now, and I was telling them about Nancy, and they're giving me all kinds of advice and counsel. And then when the meal was over, my grandpa got up and he kissed his wife and said, "What a lovely meal." And then he went and got his Bible, and he sat in the corner and he started to read. That's what Grandpa always does at night. And my grandmother put some dishes away, and then she grabbed her knitting and she started to knit. And I'm just sitting there. I'm still here, but they're doing their thing. And so I grabbed my guitar and I started to play. Grandpa read, Nana knit, I played guitar for a couple hours. Nobody talked the whole time. And then after a couple hours, my grandfather got up and he said, "What a lovely evening." And he gives me a kiss, and he gives my grandma a kiss, and he goes to bed. And then my grandmother gets up and says, "What a lovely evening." And she gives me a kiss, and then she goes to a different bed. This is the first time I realized my grandparents weren't sleeping together anymore. And I thought, oh, this is horrible, but apparently it's okay. They were sort of beyond needing to sort of always be together. But they had a love that was pretty profound, pretty deep. They had been missionaries in Tibet for 30 years. That's where my dad was born. So big story there. But anyway, the next morning I woke up and I was so moved by this beautiful evening that we had the night before, where in some ways nothing happened, but in other ways everything happened. It was the most loving or love-soaked evening of my life. And over breakfast, I remember saying to my grandpa, I says, "Grandpa, gosh, I just hope Nancy and I can have a marriage like you and Nanny has." And he leaned across the table and his eyebrows went up. He says, "Put in the time, pal, put in the time." And that was his advice. And so we have, like I say, it's up close to 40 now. And so I wrote this a few years back. I had a poem that I had found by a guy named Richard Wilbur that he wrote for someone he'd been in love with for a long time. And he says this, he says, "There's a certain scope to that long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. Though often said to be tame and staid, it's a wild sostenuto of the heart, a passion joined to courtesy and art, like a good fiddle, like a rose scent, like a stained glass window, or like the firmament." And then I added in, like a square dance lady and her square dance gent. It's a long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. And on Valentine's Day, the 30th anniversary of our first date, Nancy went to work, and I had booked, without her knowing, a table at our favorite restaurant. And I took that poem and I wrote this song and played it for her when she got home before we went out. This is Long Love.
Well, it's been 30 years of dining with you, love. And we've been feasting on the stuff that life's made of. And we have shared the finest fare. And we have known the cupboards bare, but it's been good. So very good. Do you remember how we promised we'd grow old? Now we have children who have children of their own. Because my musing needs a home, I have found a partial poem I think will do to sing to you. There's a certain scope to this long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. Though often said to be tame and staid, it's a wild sostenuto of the heart, a passion joined to courtesy and art. Like a good fiddle, like a rose scent, like a stained glass window or the firmament, like a square dance lady and her square dance gent. It's a long love, a long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. And may I say you're still a babe and looking fine. Seems you've been cheating on the ravages of time. And I already rue the day when it's time for me to say so long to you, so long to you. 'Cause there's a certain scope to this long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. And often said to be tame and staid, it's a wild sostenuto of the heart, a passion joined to courtesy and art. Like a good fiddle, like a rose scent, like a stained glass window, the firmament, like a square dance lady and her square dance gent. It's a long love, a long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. A long love, a long love that constant spirits are the keepers of. And I already rue the day when it's time for me to say so long to you, so long to you.
Okay, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. As I said early in the beginning of the concert, I wanted to talk a little bit about Saint Valentine, who is a real historical figure. He was a bishop in the Roman Empire in the 3rd century under the Emperor Claudius. And there's a great little story here, and a lot of it is just legend, and we don't know exactly what's true, but it doesn't really matter. The legend is beautiful. And Valentine was a fellow, you're going to hear in just a minute, he was a fellow that died, was martyred in defense for defending covenant love. Claudius had banned marriages for a season because he had border wars. He needed his young men for battle. But Valentine refused to stop marrying young couples. His whole point, he says, I'm a priest of the Most High. I bless covenant love. That's what I do. And so it got him into trouble with Claudius. I'll read you the story I wrote about him. I have a series of books called Pilgrim Year, which go through the church calendar year, different feasts and festivals. And this is what I wrote for the Feast of St. Valentine. Okay. My own interest in Valentine concerns his legend as a patron of covenant love, a love that transcends mere romance and erotic desire by ascending to the dizzying heights of divine human fruitful union. The story goes that it became an annoyance to Claudius when, against imperial decree, Valentine defiantly performed Christian marriages at a time when the emperor needed young men to fight the various wars on his vulnerable borders. And marriage temporarily exempted men from military service. That was the point. When Valentine was brought before the emperor, Claudius found that he liked the recalcitrant holy man. But Valentine could not be swayed. Instead, he fervently encouraged Claudius to embrace Christianity. The emperor declined and then ordered Valentine's execution. According to legend, on the night before his death, the soon-to-be martyred bishop wrote a tender letter to his jailer's daughter, whom he had previously healed of blindness, and he signed the note, "Your Valentine." To be sure, this is a dubious legend, but it has poetic veracity that is worth our attention. It's interesting to me how St. Valentine's Day, a day when we celebrate covenantal love, is placed on the border of Lent, a penitential season set aside for the Christian faithful to contemplate with sorrow and with tears the devastations of infidelity. Liturgically speaking, Valentine's Day functions like a set of binoculars to help us look through the wasteland of infidelity to the greening of Jesus' love that will not let us go. When we consider how Valentine gave his life for covenant love, it isn't a stretch to see him as a reminder of Christ's restoration of the covenantal relationship between God and humanity through the giving of his own life. So it may be time for true love's disciples to reclaim Valentine's Day. For in our day, love has been so trivialized and distorted that movie marketers recently thought themselves clever to release 50 Shades of Grey, a movie about denigrating sadomasochistic eroticism on of all days, Valentine's Day. And more tellingly, they were rewarded on opening weekend with sales of 85 million. I'm almost done. While I don't mean to be a cultural curmudgeon, I do take to heart author and musician Andy Crouch's suggestion that the proper antidote to bad culture is good culture. In this regard, I offer a modest protest with this next song that I hope will honor Valentine's legend as well as the truest love and lover he beheld. The song is called "This Is Love."
Father, just before the hour comes that was set aside to glorify your Son with the glory from before the world began, with the glory given to no other man. Protect the ones you've given me to love. I so desire that none of them be lost. They've yet to understand the mystery, why the Son of God would wash another's feet. But this is not the same, it's a different thing altogether. This is not the same, it's another thing altogether. 'Cause this is love. My prayer is not for only these alone, but for those who follow after I'm gone. May they understand the love you have for me as the kind of love that changes everything. They'll argue who will sit next to the throne, and I cringe to hear them say, "Thy kingdom come." It's a different thing altogether. This is not the same. It's another thing altogether. 'Cause this is love. This is love. Here's something that they won't like. Someone's coming to take the life. No one has to look farther than me, 'cause I am he. Some will trust in the things they think they know. They should think again and let them go. Put away the sword and get behind, and let me die. 'Cause this is not the same. It's a different thing altogether. This is not the same. It's a better thing altogether. 'Cause this is love. This is love.
Well, thank you for joining me for these few songs. I have one more song to do for you, but before I do that, I just want to thank Grace Cafe for letting us use their space so we could tape these segments. I want to thank Hannah Johnson for opening up and making sure there's some coffee to drink. I want to thank my band members for playing. I so miss playing with them live, but this is better than nothing. I want to thank Jay Johnson, my video producer. I want to thank Dave Zaglinski, my audio producer. And I want to thank you for joining me and for supporting me all these years. I do love serving you and can't wait till I can serve you again in person. Thanks for watching.
Not about science or benefits the dead contest. But there's some strange reliance yet on particles to fix the mess. Who knows if this thing we call life looks fine in another one's eyes, or bellies up with the goods everyone can approve of. One thing that I've learned in my time, you can't win when you have to draw lines. When it comes to the struggle to show and to prove love, it's always been about love. It's always been about love. It's always been about love. not about borders. Borders have their place, no doubt. Who gives the orders to abandon hope for common ground? Who knows if this thing we call life looks fine in another one's eyes? Or bellies up with the goods everyone can approve of. One thing that I've learned in my time: you can't win when you have to draw lines. When it comes to the struggle to show and to prove love. It's always been about 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 if this thing we call life looks fine in another one's eyes. Or bellies up to the goods everyone can approve of. It's all about love, nothing else matters. It's always been about love. It's all about love, nothing else matters. It's always been about love. It's always been about